All right, we're on to responsibility one about networks and fireworks. Networks and fireworks. We're into responsibility one, networks and routers. And this is 1.1.6. This is probably one of the more important ones to deal with. Documentation of business justification and approval for use of all services, protocols, and ports allowed, including documentation of security features implemented for those protocols considered to be insecure. This one's super important. I got my own notes there. Super important. Why is that? Well, let's go back to the testing procedure, then we'll talk about the whys. Verify the firewall and router configuration standards include a documented list of all services, protocols, and ports, including business justification and approval for each. Identify insecure services, protocols, and ports allowed. So there are going to be some that are insecure that are allowed. And verify that security features are documented for each service. So if there's a business purpose for having something there and it's been justified, then it needs to be explained why and what mitigation has been put in place to keep it secure, even though it is a, if you will, a less secured feature. Okay, examine firewall and router configurations to verify that the documented security features are implemented for each insecure service, protocol, and port. Okay, so we skip back up to the guidance of the why. This is what the risk is that they're trying to mitigate. Compromises often happen due to unsecure or insecure service and ports. Let me read that again. Compromises often happen due to unused or insecure service and ports. Somebody thinks that somebody needs something or somebody needed something in the past. Those need to be documented and justified. And if you're no longer using a software package, so let's say, you see it talked about having insecure services and protocols here, right? So let's say in the past they had a software package that they needed something to get through on. And you know what? Maybe that department, marketing's no longer using that software. We don't know that. So, maybe that isn't even needed anymore. And that's why we have to document and justify the business decisions. Since these often have known vulnerabilities and many organizations don't patch vulnerabilities for the services, protocols, and ports they don't use, even though the vulnerabilities are still present. In other words, you don't want to piss off the VP of marketing because they were using a software and you don't even know that they're no longer using it, right? That's why we need to go through all these departments and they need to say, hey, we're still using such and such software, and this is why it justifies opening up these ports to do whatever, right? All right. So be clearly defined and documenting the services, protocols, and ports that are necessary for business organizations. Like I said, marketing or sales or whatever sub-silo within the organization that says they need a certain software, right? And ensure that all other services, protocols, and ports are disabled and removed. That's what's so important. That's why you have to go out and get the business. Now, a lot of people push back when you try to go, when the IT department tries to go to marketing or sales or I don't know, finance, whomever, and they say, I need you to justify these ports. Their eyes just roll back in the back of their head. They don't know what those services are, but you do need to ask them what software they're using, and that can then lead to another, conversation, because then you can see where that software, what ports need to be open so that software can be used. Anyhow, that's what it's saying. And then anything that isn't a business justification, it needs to be shut down. Period. And that's where you'll find out that they're actually using stuff too. Because you'll send that out and you'll say, okay, every organization, tell us the software that you're using right now, right? And they will, they'll write you back and they'll say, nothing's changed or whatever they say. And so you're like, well, we don't know who's using this. And so you shut off a port and all of a sudden they're screaming because some software package doesn't work. Then you'll find out that they didn't fill this out. But that's also where you'll get business justification, right? Because when you turn something off and it no longer can get through the network, you're going to hear screams because. And that's how you'll get business justifications as to whether somebody needs something, right? So, and again, it usually happens on this part right here. If insecure services, protocols, or ports are necessary for business, the risk posed by use of those protocols should be clearly understood and accepted by the organization. In other words, the VP of marketing, the VP of finance, the VP of sales needs to say, this is why I need to use this software, or I need access to this or that, and these are the ports that need to be open, and this is why. Again, the IT department isn't the Gestapo, but we're here to make sure that everything else is secure and we don't bring down the whole network. And so these organizations that need software, they need to justify why they're doing it. Use of the protocol should be justified. In other words, why do I have a certain port open? It needs to be justified. And the security features that allow these protocols to be used securely should be documented and implemented. If these insecure services, protocols, or ports are not necessary for business, they should be disabled and removed. And a lot of times when I had a role like this, I would get pushback from different departments, right? Well, we need this. And what you'd find is they were using something that was very old and antiquated, and all it took was a little bit of searching, and you could probably find them a software or a solution that was more elegant, more robust, didn't cost as much money, or whatever, and they could scrap the old way of doing it and get a new way. But again, that's internal, and those internal politics are what's difficult. But the point is, for PCI compliance, you need to make sure that everything is disabled and removed that doesn't have a business justification. And the very reason is because your folks in the IT department, or the folks in the IT department, don't necessarily hang out with the folks in marketing all the time. And if marketing quit using a software package 6 months ago that has now been found to have a vulnerability, and they're not even using the software, why should that port still be open? You get rid of it, you close it down. For guidance on services, protocols, or ports considered to be insecure, refer to the industry standards guides at NIST and ANISA, etc. Okay, so this is a very important one, and it's a very difficult one because it can be very political in nature. So 1.1.6 is going to cause pushback when you try to go into different organizations, different silos within the organization, and get business justification for software that's insecure.